Yes, this is no joke. I legit crossed the border.
You what?
So back in Guatemala, my family isn't considered poor. We have like 4 houses and we pretty much aren't considered poor down there, but we'd still be poor up here. My parents, however, saw that the education system down there isn't that great, and they wanted to bring me and my sister up here to give us more opportunities, aka the American dream. Now, if you don't know, if you're from south of the border in the United States, it's not that easy to get a visa and just come over here unless you're like an athlete or a big, like, rich and famous person down there. That being said, it took less effort to sell some of our land down there and get enough money to pay a coyote to take us over the border. So that's what my mom and dad did. They decided to take a 4-year-old, I was 4 at the time, and an 8-year-old, which is my older sister, and they were gonna cross the border with us to get us into America. Now, one day, out of the blue, no warning at all for me, I just get woken up at like 3 a.m. in my room, and we hop in the car, go to the airport, and we take a flight to Mexico. Now, we met the coyote in Mexico, and he gave us further instructions on like where to go, what to bring, what to buy, and all that good stuff. If you don't know what a coyote is, he's basically the guy you pay, and he's gonna take you through the desert and lead you to the promised land, pretty much. And that's his job. He just takes the money and takes you. There are a lot of bad coyotes out there that like just finesse your money, and if you pay, they won't even take you over the border. They'll ask you for more money. So that's why we bought the most expensive coyote there was, because the more expensive it is, there's a higher chance that that coyote won't ditch you in the middle of the desert. So that's what we ended up doing. All we can carry was like a backpack that you would have for school, so you didn't really have that much clothes, water, or food, and we all had like a small blanket to sleep on, like no pillows at all. Getting back to coyotes, they always carried like a pistol with them, most of them do, and that's just to show that like whatever they say goes, and you can't really argue with their reasoning or what they're doing, and they're there to lead you. They don't really care if you argue with each other. They will leave you behind in the middle of the desert. So yeah, that's what a coyote is. They really don't care. I said that because obviously a coyote isn't just going to take our family. They're going to take multiple people at the same time, and sometimes the people don't get along. And there was another family, and there was a pregnant lady, and she started to have trouble like when we were walking in the woods and stuff, and we were like headed to the desert. And I personally don't remember this, but I watched my sister's YouTube video on the story, and like I heard stories growing up about it, and Coyote just told them that if they want, they can just go back, but he's not going back with them, and they're not getting their money back. So the family ended up staying, and they got left behind, and we don't know what happened to them. We don't know if they got lost in the desert. So yeah, it's pretty messed up. I'm saying this because the farther in we got into the desert, we saw some skeletons on the floor. I personally don't remember this, but if you watch my sister's YouTube video that I will link down below, she remembers it, my dad does, and so does my mom. There was like live skeletons on the floor in the desert, basically telling us this is no joke. Some people have gotten lost on the way back and have died out here in the desert. And a lot of people died trying to cross the border. I'm just amazed that we didn't. The odds weren't really in our favor because my mom was like 7 months pregnant. I was 4 and my sister was 8. So the only capable person of like crossing the border was really my dad, who was probably like 25, 26 at the time. So he was the only capable person of crossing the border. I was very fortunate enough to be little, so my dad basically carried me the whole way. He just like picked me up and carried me, and my sister had to walk because my mom really couldn't pick her up because my mom was pregnant, so she wasn't going to pick up my sister and carry her when she was pregnant herself. So I got lucky with my dad carrying me the whole way. I barely walked, not gonna lie. So after walking for a bit, we got to a shed, and the shed is where we were gonna stay the night because it was dark out and we didn't want to get lost in the nighttime, and there was animals out that we heard and stuff. So we were just gonna sleep, and the coyote gave instructions to my dad of what he had to do in the morning because the coyote was going back to get other people. Like, this is his trip, and then there's another coyote waiting for us up ahead. So he told my dad what we had to do. But that night, I was gonna save this for another video, but I'm just gonna tell you guys here. That night when we were sleeping, I got bitten by a snake on my chest. Yes, it's pretty ironic. I got bitten by a beaver, now I got bitten by a snake. I just find it pretty funny. But I was also bitten by another animal up until this point in my life, but that's another story. Luckily for me, the snake wasn't poisonous and I was pretty much okay. They killed the snake after it bit me, and because I woke up crying in the middle of the night. But that's how I got bitten by a snake in the desert while crossing the border.
You what?
The instructions the coyote told my dad is that we had to go north, and once we saw train tracks to our right, there's gonna be at a certain time that a train is gonna pass by, and there's, you know how there's carts on a train, we had to jump onto the open carts in order to go to the next step and go to the next coyote. And this is a part where a lot of people die, because a lot of people get ran over by the train as they're trying to climb on top of it. And think about it, I was 4 years old, my sister was 8, my mom was pregnant. So my dad literally had to throw me and my sister in, and then he ended up picking up my mom and he jumped on to another cart because there was more than one cart that was open. So we weren't even with our parents at that point, but we were all going to the same spot, and we were just kept riding in it for a while. And there was like other sheds that people were in, and people would throw like food and water at us so we can have some water while we're on the train and stuff. The train was headed to the States, so we basically had to be quiet and we just had to stay on the train until it stopped and we had to get off. So we finally got off, and we ended up getting off in Arizona. And we were like in the woods of Arizona. We weren't fully in Arizona yet, but we had to go to Arizona. That's the border we were gonna cross. We were near a highway. Like, the only thing separating us in Arizona was a fence onto a highway in Arizona. And there was these trucks that would come, 2 of them, and we had to jump onto it. It would stop. It was like late at night, so there was like nobody on the highway. It would stop in the middle of the highway, and we just had to run and jump on top of it, basically like hop in, and it would take off, and then we made it. The first van came, and most of the people that were with us jumped over the fence and ran in it, and they escaped. And then like patrol basically started chasing them. Cop cars and stuff started chasing them, and that was it. And then we had to wait for our turn. By this point, they caught on to what was happening, so they knew that the next van was gonna come. And as soon as the van stopped, they were shooting in the middle of the highway. They started shooting at us in our direction as we were trying to run in. We still weren't over the fence, but there was bullets flying at us. So we knew that the car took off and it wasn't gonna wait for us, and we were caught, and that was how we got caught crossing the border. Me and my sister went to a juvenile detention center basically, and my mom and dad each went to prison and waiting for like trial to be deported and stuff. And it was just funny because remember how I told you my mom was pregnant? Well, I was in juvie for like a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I honestly don't remember. It felt like forever. But what ended up happening was she ended up going into labor with all the stress. And my little brother, Jose, aka the anchor baby, was born on Arizona soil, so he was a US citizen. After a couple of like days in court and stuff, and my parents got this figured out, my uncle like hired a lawyer. He was already here in the United States. We ended up being able to stay with a certain type of visa, and that is how we came to America. They risked everything to bring us to America and give us an opportunity, and I ended up dropping out of college. Yeah. Sorry, Mom and Dad.